This show is brought to you by our partners TalkSPORT BET. New customers get an exclusive offer of £40 in free bets when you bet £10. Go to talksportbet.com/Inside Devils to claim this offer now. I went through a range of emotions of anger, more anger, happiness, rejoice, relief at the end.
A C+ here for Manchester United. I think the lack of a defensive midfielder grades them down, and I'm still not entirely convinced by Benjamin Sesko and what we've seen so far, but it is very early days.
It's been, less than a month or something? Yeah. I think people need to just take a minute on it, let the guy get fit at least, and then judge him from that.
Do you know who scored the most Premier League penalties ever? Alan Shearer, right? Do you know who's missed the most? Alan Shearer. That's just how it is. You step up, you take loads of penalties, you convert them. Sometimes you miss them. You know, when it's Manchester United, there's always, let's jump on and find something negative.
City and Villa both had awful starts. Play City next, go there and win, which we've got a good chance of doing. We could give them 3 defeats in a row.
If I was in charge of the football operations at Manchester United, they'd still be able to attract these players. It's not because INEOS are in charge of the football operations.
I'm sick of this narrative, right, that the players aren't playing for every single manager we have. Let's have a look at where they manage, how they manage, if they manage. Have these managers that we brought in been good enough?
Hello and welcome to Inside Devils, sponsored by TalkSPORT BET, your weekly Man United show, bringing you everything coming out of Old Trafford. Plenty of positivity in the studio as we secured our first win of the season on Saturday at home to Burnley. It was dramatic, maybe a little bit too dramatic, but a win is a win. And trust me, did we need that. Later on, we're going to be checking in with Crookie to get his reaction to United's transfer window. And now let's welcome in Angelina Kelly and Ryon Scott-Douglas to go through our first win of the Premier League season. It was dramatic. I sat in my seat not really knowing what to do. I went through a range of emotions of anger, more anger, happiness, rejoice, relief at the end.
Yeah.
But Ange, it is all about winning, especially with the start to the season that we've had. And it was right after Grimsby, and it was just all about making sure we won that game.
Yeah, I'm always a big believer in, your performances should be good, you should be getting better, etc. But we don't have that at the moment. Like, the most important thing is that we get the win. We got the 3 points. It was scruffy. Was it the way that I would like to see a game go? Absolutely not. But I think overall the players showed good character to come back after that Grimsby game. Bruno Fernandes stepping up to the penalty spot. I know Matthias de Ligt spoke about it, saying, I don't know if I could have done that. The pressure really was on him. But, that's why he's such a great captain. So, yeah, it wasn't pretty. And I think that there were a lot of situations where United were they started very, very strong. And the chances that we missed came back to bite us. It was, 26 shots, was it? 6 on target. It does need to get better, but a win's a win.
Yeah, there was one thing, if we're looking at the positives, Ryan, there was so many chances in that first half. Yeah. I sat in my seat and I was like, how is this game not 3-0 at half-time? It was 1-0 at half-time, but the game should have been out of sight. Ahmad missing an absolute sitter, Joshua Zirkzee missing a sitter, and then Martin Dubravka with 2 really good saves from Mbeumo and Ahmad respectively. But that is almost sort of a positive, because the chances are there and it's like you're waiting for them to just be more clinical, but at the same time, really bad of us to not put that game outside at half-time.
Look, I completely agree. And I suppose that's where Šeško's going to come into the picture, because, again, he didn't start that game, did he? Which I know that's come up for debate. Why is he not starting?
Wasn't even the first sub on either.
No, I know. He went for Zirkzee, didn't he, ahead of him, which is an eyebrow raiser.
Yeah, we are going to talk about that.
Yeah, he's talked about his fitness, etc. But going back to your actual point, that's where hopefully Šeško, the marquee striker, comes in. But it is a positive that we are creating chances. I have to say that. It is a big positive, and I've been a critic of Amarin's style. One thing that it has indicated to me, though, just everything really, the transfer window, the way we've been playing, and all these chances we're creating, it's probably going to be the dynamic this season that we're going to have to outscore opponents as opposed to 1-0s and 2-0s and shutting up shop, because we're leaking goals. We are leaking goals.
4 goals as well.
4 goals.
Really, when you look at the replay of the goal, you go, how have we conceded there?
Exactly.
That's what hurts me, but time after time, really soft goals.
Yeah, really soft goals. And you got to factor in the 2 against Grimsby as well. But as Ange said...
That was down to one person.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was. I agree there. But as Ange said, Bruno... I always bang the drum about Bruno, but he scored 3 penalties since he missed that penalty against Fulham. He is the guy. He is that captain. Don't deny him. He's amazing. He steps up to that. And despite the fact that he's missed that penalty against Fulham, again, I felt like I could leave the room, make myself a cup of tea, come back, and I know he'd have scored it. It just looked like he was.
I didn't feel like that in the stadium. I was.
I bet you did.
Although, like, do you know what's weird? You know that Bruno's inevitable, but obviously because he's just missed that in the last Premier League game. But I am thinking there's no one else on this pitch that I want to be taking this instead of. I'm not like give it to Axel. Get Sesko his first. No, give it to Bruno. But when it's the last kick of the game and you're just like, you know that you should have won this game and it should have been out of sight, and missing that penalty. No one's going to care about the narrative of XG, and I'll tell you what, they battered them, and there's a lot of positive signs. It's you just lost to Grimsby, and now you haven't beat Burnley at home. That's why when you talk about pressure, that was exactly it for Bruno Fernandes, and he made it look easy. Yeah,
he really did. Yeah, and like I say, that's why he's such a good captain for Manchester United. It was scary. I didn't feel that chilled out. I was very nervous. Obviously, I back him, but I was like you, Flex. If this goes horribly wrong...
That's all I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Like, you can't miss this, Bruno.
And you have the international break, so there's no game coming up the following week that you can kind of build on and kind of cancel it out. You've then got to sit with that for a couple of weeks.
And there was a long pause between when the penalty got called, and obviously the check with the pulling of the shirt.
No one shoved him, though. No one shoved him.
Even for the first one where the penalty was given on Mount, I was like, right, Bruno, stay away from the ref. Don't be getting booked. And then, obviously, it wasn't a pen. And then Hannibal Mejbri, Hannibal, you're trying to kick this. You're lucky you're one of ours, because when he was with us and he tries that sort of housery, he was digging up the penalty spot.
We know what he's about, though.
You know what he's about, and he got a nice clap afterwards. Let's talk about Benjamin Sesko, though, Ryan, because you did touch on it a little second ago. There was a lot of talk about why it took him so long to take a penalty. Against Grimsby. It was a little bit of an eye, like sort of, tempered. All these players are going by, you're like, where's Sesko? But the manager come out and said, look, after his first 90 minutes in, however long, he's very leggy, he was very tired. And he still took one and scored one. But a lot was being made about that. He then goes on to not start the game against Burnley. And at the first chance of needing to make a substitution because Cunha got injured, which we'll also talk about, he brings on Joshua Zirkzee instead of him. It's taken a little while for Benjamin Sesko to get up to speed, isn't it? And actually, when he did come on, he had a couple of half chances, but he's not involved that much, is he, at the minute?
No, it is interesting. However, we're still learning this manager. Let's not forget that. It's still early-ish. I mean, he's had a bit of time, but we're still learning. We're still seeing the way that he likes to operate. And he will not put you in if he doesn't want to put you in. That is just, it's as simple as that. Even in Boomer, when everyone's like, get him in.
Yeah, first two games didn't play on tour.
Yeah, get him in. But no, he doesn't. And it's same with Sesko. He obviously feels like he needs to protect him. He sees what we don't. So it did raise an eyebrow at me. I thought, I don't understand why he would play against Grimsby and not play against Burnley. I still don't really get that.
Well, then if he's saying he was really tired, he was so tired he could barely take a penalty.
Yeah. Well,
so then are we surprised that 2 days later he's not starting?
You got to take the manager at face value, I suppose, is what I circle back round to. But get that fitness up. Do you know what I mean? Because he needs to start converting these chances.
Keep playing.
Yeah.
But I was almost sure, Hans, before the game, not just because of what he said, but like I think he actually likes the fluidity of Mount, Cunha and Boomer, because they were creating chances against Arsenal. Then they started really well against Fulham. You know what Amram's like? I just fear he'll just go with that until Sesko gets up. But is it a lack of trust for you, or is it just, listen, let's not do this as a United fan. He's just got here. We want him to be our saviour, but let the kid, let him get his feet comfortable, let him get his fitness up.
I think with Benjamin Sesko, I do think people need to just give it a minute. I do think that people need to calm down because at the end of the day, he clearly isn't fit. The Grimsby situation, we now know the penalty, it's been put to bed, the fact that he was cramping up, he was having difficulties. I'm not going to hold that against him.
And he still scored it.
Yeah, he still scored it.
He did it and missed.
But I think people were a little bit harsh because we didn't know the situation behind it. Now we do. I think people were a little bit quick to judge and be, he's not striker, he should be first one up, what kind of mentality
Why
has he got?
Why have we got rid of Rasmus just for this and the 75 million quid we're not playing?
I get cramp just as a normal human being. So cramp as a footballer, I don't even want to think about that kind of pain. So you just got to take a beat on it. And I think he is a young, raw talent. He is not already made package deal of the perfect striker. And if Manchester United wanted somebody who was a little bit more proven, who was a little bit more adjusted, you'd have brought in Ollie Watkins. Someone who was older. There's a reason why they've brought in this young player. So I just think that people need to... It's been, less than a month or something? I think people need to just take a minute on it, let the guy get fit at least, and then judge him from that.
Yeah,
You know what I'll say?
I agree.
I'll just jump in and say I do agree with that. And there's always going to be propaganda. We know this
Yeah.
about Manchester United. Even Bruno missing that penalty, right? And everyone's like, no one's missed more penalties in the Premier League era than Bruno since he started. Sorry, right? I'll put this to bed. Do you know who scored the most Premier League penalties ever? Alan Shearer, right? Do you know who's missed the most? Alan Shearer. That's just how it is. You step up, you take loads of penalties, you convert them. Sometimes you miss them. That is part
You're
and
the one
parcel.
with the courage to be there every time giving that ball.
Yeah.
Exactly. But, when it's Manchester United, there's always, let's jump on and find something negative. But I'm with Ange. Let's
Yeah, I agree. And actually, do you know what? For the first time in person, because it's the first time I've seen him play for so long in person, because he was really quick against Arsenal, I kind of looked at it and saw where the manager was coming from. He does look off the pace.
Yeah.
Not like alarmingly, oh my God, we bought a dud, but just like, I can actually see probably why the manager's not starting you. You look a little bit off it. He looks a little bit lost. And
it is a step up from the leagues that he's been playing in.
And us as a team, like we're not really, it's like we're forgetting he's there. We're not playing to him. We're not playing off him. We're not playing for him at this moment in time. So I think it's just a patience thing. I really do. And now there's, of course, which we're going to talk about now, there's a couple of injuries. We've got to maybe reshuffle the deck. I mean, Mateus Cunha off with a hamstring injury. He was sort of getting on the half turn, trying to make things happen. You see him go down, holding the back of his thigh, and you're like, oh, please not. And then Mason Mount goes off at half time as well. How significant of misses can they be? I mean, we are stacked in the 10 position, ironically.
Yeah.
But they started quite well, those two, even though it didn't turn into goals, but they've been on the front foot.
It's a shame. It's a shame. I should say about both of them. Cunha, you see him go down like it's just heartbreaking to see that so early. I don't even know what the situation. I've not even heard.
We haven't had a proper update yet.
He did walk out of the stadium though, which I guess gives you something.
But anytime you come off from a hamstring injury, it's very unlikely. You're like, oh, I thought I felt something. I'm all right next game.
It's something.
Usually a couple of weeks, but it isn't national break.
Yeah, so it's come at a good time. So Cunha, I don't doubt he'll bounce back. Like you say, we've got so many people that can fill in the 10 position. But Mount, again, it's disappointing because he started the season so well. However, with Mount, what I will say, which is what I have said, it comes with the territory with Mount, unfortunately. He is injury prone, and I really like him, and he's been playing well, but it does come with the territory with Mount. So as much as it is a shame, it's something that I've factored into my thinking when I think about this season anyway.
What do you think that means in terms of the reshuffle of the pack? We saw Kobbie Mainoo come on at half-time. We know what's been made of the Kobbie Mainoo situation. When we spoke last time on the show, it was, will he be a Manchester United player by the window closing? What, did you say no? Did you say no? Did you say no?
It was Ange, yeah.
You didn't think he'd be here.
I didn't think
so.
He'd
He
be
is here. Obviously, at the time that he came on at half time, the window was actually still open.
Yeah.
But he is still our player, thank God. Bruno went into midfield, and then it means Kobbie got some minutes. So do you think that we might start to see his season begin off the back of this now?
I would hope so, because the narrative has been that Ruben Amorim wants Kobbie Mainoo at the club. He thinks that he's a talented player. For me, I just think it's not conducive to a good working environment for someone like Kobbie Mainoo to be pitting him against the captain, against Bruno Fernandes. I think that this is a moment for Ruben Amorim to step up to the plate as a manager. I think to be able to slot Kobbie Mainoo into this side, he really should be forming things around someone like Kobbie Mainoo, because how many times have we heard generational talent with him? So you should be prioritising a player like that. I understand people question, if he fits into the system, etc. But this is a really good opportunity for him to maybe be playing in one of those number 10 roles, or putting Bruno further forward and putting Kobbie back. I'd like to see either, to be completely honest, but I think that it's a worrying situation. But regarding the midfield, and we'll get onto it, obviously we didn't sign a midfielder. If Ruben Amorim can't get somebody like Kobbie Mainoo playing well, even just as a stopgap until January when they sign someone, then it is a little bit worrying.
It's a worry, yeah. And he's good enough to be getting minutes in this team. I know stylistically, there's questions of, does he fit a two-man midfield in under this Amorim system? Not naturally, no. Does he want to be one of those 2-10s? He can, but naturally, no. But he's in how bad the midfield is, he's got to be getting some minutes. Brighton and Mbeumo, off and running. I mean, when we stupidly went to 1-1, it just sparked us into life, and we put the ball down, kicked off, went up the other end, Dalot cross, and he checks his run, gets a really nice instinctive goal, and he has some really good moments. He forced an excellent save from Martin Dubravka, with a ball from Mason Mount as well. Right foot shot just wide.
Yeah.
Put it on a plate for Ahmad. really involved, Bryan Mbeumo, and he's been that's been the only thing missing is that goal, because he's been quite good.
Yeah, I hope that's it now. I hope he can kick on. I mean, there's been so many good signs anyway since he's put a Man United shirt on. And he is, I know everyone's purring about Cunha, and quite rightly, because he just fits, doesn't he, Cunha?
Yeah.
He just looks like he's got it. But an equal measure, Bryan Mbeumo has to be there. These two are fantastic players. And amazing signings when you actually look at the transfer window. Both these are fantastic signings. And he's up, he took the chance well as well, considering, you want to see your forwards putting a chance like that away. And fair play to Dallo as well for getting that across the box. But I'm really happy Mbeumo got off the mark. And I think that could really kick him on for the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on, City and Villa have both had awful starts. After Grimsby, of course, me included, very angry, what's going on here, you know my thoughts. But when you look at it, I'm not saying it's great, but, City are below us, we play City next, we go there and win, which we've got a good chance of doing at this precise moment, because we could give them 3 defeats in a row.
Yeah.
Has the attention on United been that United thing, or is it valid when you lose to Grimsby and, you look at the Fulham perspective? But Arsenal was good, but we still lost. Like, has it been unjustified, or is it like, no, the scrutiny is deserved because you finished 15th?
I just think this is the price that you pay being Manchester United. You have more eyes on you than you have on many clubs. You have more eyes on you than any other Premier League club, and you're one of the most scrutinised clubs in world football. So I think this is just part and parcel of it. You pair that with us being a massive club. You pair that with coming 15th, everyone pointing and laughing, etc. So the second that there's any kind of rumblings, then, people are going to start picking at it. But I do agree that I think that City have been pretty weak from what I've seen. I go into this Manchester derby feeling extremely positive. I mean, I might end up having to eat my words, but I don't think that this new City team has clicked yet. I don't see...
It's a good time to be playing.
I don't see a Manchester City team that's going to be rivalling Liverpool and Arsenal, for example. And just shout out to Ryon Scott-Douglas, who was running his mouth, saying how he wanted to kill Man United because we beat Lyon. Like, just calm down, mate. Like, do you know what I mean? Just take a minute. Like, I want to kill them. Like, let's just relax, okay?
Football works in crazy ways.
Yeah.
Crazy ways. Right. Right. Last night, the window slammed shut in what's been a massively busy summer across the Premier League. Some big incomings at Old Trafford over the last few months. So now we're going to have our final review of Man United's transfer activity. Kicking us off is, of course, our captain. I don't know who called him the skipper. I don't know that. But he's our captain when it comes to the biggest deals. It's Alex Crook, who also has a bit to get off his chest after the Burnley win.
Thanks, guys. Well, it was another roller coaster, wasn't it, against Burnley? Could have been 4 or 5 up at half-time. Ended up making really heavy weather of it. Defensive mistakes, more calamities from the goalkeeper. Hopefully, those will be addressed with the signing of Seny Lammens coming in from Royal Antwerp. We'll get onto that in a moment. I think what gives me positives about United's start of the season, apart from the Grimsby game, which was obviously atrocious, there have been positives in all of the Premier League matches. I think the 90 minutes against Arsenal was pretty decent, probably deserved a point in that game. The first half against Fulham, had they have taken one of those early chances, then it may well have been quite an easy victory in the end at Craven Cottage, but second half was poor. And the first half against Burnley, when they could have really put the Clarets to the sword. United have had more than 80 shots across their 4 League and Cup games this season, so I just sense that eventually, when the forwards find their shooting boots, somebody might be on the end of a hammering. Let's hope so anyway. Who knows? Maybe it might be Manchester City in the derby, and we're going into the Manchester derby above City in the table. I think that certainly is something we can celebrate. But it felt an important win, didn't it, for Ruben Amorim, just to silence some of the noise. If they'd not have beaten Burnley, it would have been a pretty miserable international break, not just for Amorim, but for us suffering supporters as well. Anyway, enough of that game. I caught up with Ben Jacobs in the aftermath of transfer deadline day to grade United's activity in the summer window.
Now let's get the red side of Manchester. We were led to believe by Sir Jim Ratcliffe that there was basically no money, that the club was on the brink of going broke, that he might have to reach down the back of the couch in order to find some transfer funds. But in the end, 66 million on Benjamin Sesko, 65 million on Bryan Mbeumo. The initial fee could rise over 70. Mateus Cunha's release clause, 62.5 million. Sene Larsman's, the goalkeeper, coming on deadline day. Diego Leon joining and arriving. That was obviously agreed a little bit earlier, 6.2 million. And they got 5 million back for Jadon Sancho, who obviously ended up then going on loan to Aston Villa. If you look at the volume of business and the Premier League experience that Manchester United brought in, particularly, of course, Mbeumo and Cunha, it feels like a great window, but they didn't get a midfielder.
No, and I think that's the big disappointment for Manchester United fans, that the lack of that number 6, that enforcer that all top clubs need. Obviously, they made a play for Carlos Baleba, but I think I told you quite early on that was a non-starter, that Brighton were never going to let him go in this window. The goalkeeping dynamic is interesting because they've got 4 keepers now, and I'm not sure how that's going to work. I don't really know who the number 1 will be. I think when they signed Lamond, it was with a view to being back up to Andre Onana. He might very quickly find himself as the main man between the posts, and a lot of United fans would have preferred them to go for the experience of Emi Martinez. But those forward signings are exciting. Cunha and Mbeumo in particular, tried and trusted in the Premier League. Cunha has looked absolutely sensational in that number 10 shirt so far, and Mbeumo has come up with a couple of big goals already as well. So I'm probably going to go for a C+ here for Manchester United. I think the lack of a defensive midfielder grades them down, and I'm still not entirely convinced by Benjamin Sesko and what we've seen so far, but it is very early days.
I'm going to give him a B+, a B for Benjamin Sesko, a B for Bryan Mbeumo. I think that Premier League experience and the goals that they bring will mean that Manchester United are okay, but 2026, they need an elite midfielder. That is for sure. Some significant outgoings as well, which is why the grade is bumped up from my perspective. Anthony going to Real Betis, Rasmus Højlund to Napoli, Jadon Sancho, like I mentioned, to Aston Villa, Marcus Rashford's wage off the books. He's gone off to Barcelona as well. And I think making sure there was a solution for the so-called bomb squad, very important. And I'll be as happy, in my opinion, with the outgoings as the incomings that have come in. And now we just have to wait and see whether they maybe return for Brighton's Carlos Baleba in 12 months' time.
So there we have it from Crookie, and now it's our turn to debate the comings and goings this summer. To help us, I'm delighted to welcome in TalkSPORT transfer reporter and big United fan, Anil Kandola. Are you going to be as scathing as Crookie, Anil? I know you are a hard customer. You are difficult to please. What are you rating this window out of 10?
It's a difficult one. Firstly, a pleasure as always to join this wonderful panel. Look, I think it's a very difficult one to sort of navigate your way through for a couple of reasons. Look, at the end of the day, there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen for Man United whether it comes to incomings and outgoings. There is so much to do. And in a realistic world, that was all not going to be addressed in one summer. So that's why I do give them a little bit of leeway. And as you can probably tell by the tone of my voice, there is a but coming. And ultimately, the but is, you've now got a situation where you've got the likes of Mbeumo, Cunha and Bruno Fernandes. We're probably already going to be in the stage of saying they're arguably United's 3 most attacking and important players. I'm happy to admit that. But then you look and you drop back a little bit into the midfield and they just look so light in that area. It does make me think a little bit, could they potentially have had a situation where they signed maybe one of Cunha or Mbeumo and then potentially spent that money elsewhere? But as I've already said, look, they've got a lot of work to do, and I think it is a very valid point. Amongst all of the clubs in the Premier League, I think they were the ones, Manchester United, who had the most to get rid of. The bomb squad has been the title of the summer, if that's even fair to say. And at the end of the day, I know Man United fans would have always wanted a little bit more money, especially up front. But at the end of the day, these players have gone. And Tyrone Malissia, I think out of all of them, was probably the least problematic, or the ones hitting the headlines the least as well. Of course, he wasn't so successful in finding a move, with, of course, other countries still a possibility with their deadline day still to come in a couple of weeks' time. But I would say out of 10, I'm going to give it a 6.5. Look, there's been a couple of very good and exciting players coming through the door, which already are looking like some decent bits of business. But you do just worry about that midfield. It just looks like it's going to be a game of basketball every time Man United play now with that hole in midfield.
Yeah, Anil, listen, every single thing you said there, I 100% agree with it. A 6.5 is my score. I don't normally do half, so if I had to be pushed, I would actually go 6. But I think 6.5, because actually when you look at the positions we needed stuff at the top end of the pitch. We needed a goalkeeper. And of course, we didn't get a midfielder, which we needed. So I'm happy to sort of be at the 6.5 mark. We did get a goalkeeper, Ryan.
Yeah.
Seny Lamans has joined. Deadline day, it was between him and Emi Martinez. But then we're seeing reports that we probably did want Martinez, but Sancho was basically like, I'm not going on a permanent, so you're not going to be able to do that. But most importantly, Onana, or more significantly, should I say, Onana's clearly not the number one choice anymore. He hasn't started in the first 3 games and had a shocker against Grimsby. Samrim's made it very clear. Is it how big of a positive is it that we got Seny Lamans or a goalkeeper?
It's huge. Look, it is huge. Is it the goalkeeper maybe pockets of the Man United fan base wanted when you weigh up this Martinez and Lamans debate? I don't know. Maybe it's splitting the fan base down the middle, but it feels like Christmas, to be honest with you, that we've managed to get a goalkeeper through the door. If you were asking me on the day, I'd have probably tilted towards Premier League proving in Emi Martinez, but. It fits the INEOS model to go for somebody who is a hot prospect who looks like they can grow into this shirt. So ultimately, we should be really happy we've got a goalkeeper through the door, because those 2 goalkeepers so far they're just not at it. They're just not it, and that was a problem area that we've addressed.
Yeah, for you, Ange, listen, Ryan's favourite player ever of all time. He's still got the posters on his wall. Alejandro Garnacho, fresh bleached blonde hair for his Chelsea reveal. His idols in Hazard and stuff like that revealed.
Lies.
This is why I wanted to come to Ange on this question. But no, listen, we did sell him for £40 million to Chelsea. Was that the best out of a bad situation, considering how fractured the relationship was between club and player? And he chose Chelsea, or should we have got a lot more for him, considering the market?
I think with the situation, it wasn't made easy with this quote-unquote bomb squad, because Jason Wilcox has had a massive job here, because you're not only trying to get these players out, but Ruben Amorim has made it abundantly clear that he doesn't want them. So that affects transfers massively, because teams know what they're dealing with. Clubs like Chelsea know that they can push the boundaries a little bit, because United was so desperate to get rid. So me overall, I'm happy that the deal has been done. We got him for around £400,000 from Atletico Madrid in 2020. I genuinely wish him luck. I hope that he manages to revive his career a little bit. I just think the main issue here, it was never the talent that he had. He always had that raw talent, but I think it just comes down to attitude. And I was reading an article in the Times about how in his home gym he has murals of all of his favourite sportsmen. I think, Michael Jordan's there, Ronaldo, Messi. Himself, he's there as well. Yeah. Which I think tells you everything you need to know about Garnacho.
Confidence, I don't mind that. Yeah.
Eden Hazard wasn't there. Why was Eden Hazard not there?
And she's got the receipts.
I'm a little bit disappointed. I just think that it's been a really horrible situation, hasn't it? The stuff with the Instagram, his brother, the things that he's been saying. The best thing with this situation was to cut the cord. So for me, I'm relieved. I know that Ryan's probably a little bit sad, but
I'm sad it didn't work out. It didn't work out because, look, he gave us some good moments, man. And he's still really young, and his goal contributions for his age, I know the water got muddied towards the end of the season. But the goal contributions for his age have been really, really good. And he can become a good player, like you say. It's just about his attitude. So I'm with you. I wish him all the best.
Anil, for you, INEOS, let's talk about them. Do they, or how much credit, or not credit, do they deserve for the window we've had? We know that, I hate the term bomb squad, but the players that were not welcomed back and, been problematic through wages and contracts that were given to them, not by INEOS. Amorim was very clear on that as well, and a lot of fans agreed with that stance. Finishing 15th and being able to go and attract the players like Cunha and Bumo and Benjamin Sesko is one of Europe's top young strikers. How much credit are you giving INEOS this window? Have they done a good job?
Yeah, with all due respect, Flex, if I was in charge of the football operations at Manchester United, they'd still be able to attract these players. It's not because INEOS are in charge of the football operations that players are all of a sudden so attracted to the club. Let's be honest, if it was just even still the Glazers, we're all in unison completely of our thoughts and feelings towards them, and yet they still attracted all the big names across Europe for however long we've been following Manchester United. So I don't necessarily think it's been the INEOS pull of anything like that per se, but at the end of the day, as I've said, that they've come into a very difficult situation. I do think quite a few of the big decisions and the ultimate end of the day, the decisions around Eric Ten Hag, for instance, and certain things around, the non-playing staff and all that kind of stuff. Of course, they've got a lot of stuff wrong. But if we're looking in isolation at only and utterly the transfer window, look, at the end of the day, they've brought in some good players. They've stuck, and I think it was Ryan that alluded to, the ethos or the scope of players that they want to bring in. The San Lomans, I agree with Ryan, by the way. I would firmly have preferred Martinez. It's a massive position to fill, and it's a very difficult one with so much scope on you.
Do you think they've made a mistake there? Do you think they've made a mistake here with going with a young, inexperienced keeper?
Yeah, look, like I said, INEOS is demographic, if you like, when it comes to the signings, has been very clear. Look, we've seen throughout all of their short time, they want the younger players who will then blossom into potentially huge sellable assets or world-class players that can remain within the squad. But at the end of the day, so much scope is on Manchester United, so much scope is on goalkeepers in football in general, because one mistake, we know what happens. You add that all together and you put in the magnitude of playing at Old Trafford week in, week out. It is designed for a goalkeeper like Emi Martinez. He thrives off the pressure in that way. And I actually spoke to Phil Jones yesterday morning, former Manchester United defender, and he said it was a no-brainer that they should have gone for Martinez. And that's nothing against Le Mans. Look, we don't know what he's going to be like. He's only had just over 50 appearances for Antwerp. He's yet to play international football at the senior level. So he may be the next Courtois, and we hope so. But I think in that regard, I potentially think that with INEOS sticking to their guns so much of wanting younger talent to come through, I think it mounts a real big element of pressure on the young goalkeeper. But going back to your question, look, like I said, I think the two areas that I could potentially find areas of criticism for INEOS, one would be the fact that they haven't addressed the midfield. The fact that they were linked with a couple of players towards the end of the window show that they've identified that. I was told numerous times throughout the window that Amorim has stressed the importance of getting a midfielder in. And then you also look at the outgoings. Look, it was a situation almost, not quite, but just get them out at all costs, or whatever you can, just get rid of them and we'll start again.
Which was understandable. I think the position was in.
Of course, I'm not gonna go in too much about that, but you do look at a couple of them deals, and you just think, with Marcus Rashford, it's a buy option, and it won't even be 30 million, and you think to yourself, at one stage, Man United fans, probably including myself, would have turned down 100 million for this player. Same with Alejandro Garnacho. They had 50 million as their price tag. They dropped it. How many times have Manchester United been able to convince other clubs to drop their price? It never happens. It's almost the opposite. They meet that price tag and it increases and they have to pay more. So I think in regards to the sales, I do think it's been a little bit left to decide. But look, at the end of the day, they've got a squad that looks a little bit more like what Ruben Amorim wants. And if he is going to succeed, it certainly needs to be in a picture of what he likes it to be, rather than the players who are surplus to requirements.
So with the amount of money spent, Ange, firstly, is it fair to say that Ruben Amorim has been back this summer? I know midfield aside, because that's probably one way he hasn't, but money has been spent. Where do you think INEOS will be looking for Amorim to finish? What is acceptable this season for you, with now the transfer window shut?
It's really hard, because you look at transfer windows. I mean, let's all be completely honest. The last transfer window, we all sat here, we were really happy about Manuel Ugarte. Alex Crook said that we should have had Raheem Sterling.
Did he say that, Crookie?
Yeah, he said he would have taken a swap of Sancho and Sterling.
Yeah, we all have howlers, isn't it?
So, it's really hard to judge transfer windows because we've all been burnt by it, let's be honest. But I think it's also really hard to say where Manchester United will finish. We clearly needed a goalkeeper. They have got a goalkeeper. I'm of the opinion that I think it was the right decision. Happy birthday to Emi Martinez, by the way. This has been absolutely shambolic for him. I actually feel a little bit sorry for him.
He's got a tough time on his hands now.
Yeah, I mean, how'd you wave goodbye to the fans at the end of last season and you're still there? I just think that, again, this Project 150, you look at this goalkeeper that we've brought in, he will be about 26 if United won the league in 2028. Emi Martinez would be 35. And I know people have the argument of, Edwin van der Sar was about 34 when Fergie brought him in. We had completely different priorities at that point. I think Emi Martinez, yes, he's a World Cup winner, but he has the potential, in my opinion, to be a little bit toxic with some of his behaviour. So I think being a World Cup winner, you've got a certain mentality, but I don't think that he would have been an absolute angel either. So I think with the goalkeeper that we've signed, I mean, I've done a little bit of a Ryon and I've looked at a couple of stats. I mean, he actually, last season, he managed to save 4 penalties, which was absolutely like out of this world what he did. And he got a lot of praise for that. He's been player of the month a couple of times. He's made more saves than any other goalkeeper in Europe's top 10 leagues last season. And he also, goals prevented. So goals prevented is basically calculated by subtracting expected goals on target from goals conceded, excluding own goals. So he's kept out almost 90 more goals than you would expect from an average goalkeeper. Now, I'm not saying that that's the be-all and end-all, but for context, his number is 18.4. Dean Henderson's last season was 4.4. James Trafford's was 12.85. So I'm really happy with that. So I think they have, going back to your question, they have said, you need a goalkeeper, we're going to bring you a goalkeeper. Have you guys also heard about this Onana situation?
I was going to say
about the contract.
The contract, yeah.
So the Athletic are reporting that he came in like all guns blazing, basically demanding that he had a new contract, wasn't it? That he won, and this pay cut with the Champions League.
Hence, he's never played since.
And Amram's been rubbed the wrong way by that, and I completely agree with that. So I think that's
it's the reason we weren't in the Champions League.
Yeah, exactly.
What's
the
he
year
talking
before,
about?
he threw us out.
So he returned to Carrington seeking a new contract, a stance he's held since receiving the standard 25% pay cut for failing to qualify for the Champions League, a move that didn't sit well with Amarin. So we know what's going on here. He wants him out.
They're trying to phase him.
We've got a goalkeeper. We've got attacking players that can create goals. So for me, I think that we have enough to create a bit of a stopgap in order to get to January. I do expect us to sign a midfielder in January. So all of this combined, I think that INEOS will be looking for a European place. And I think that we are definitely capable of that because we haven't got any cup games now till January. So all we've got is the league. And Amram harps on about we need time on the training pitch, blah, blah, blah. He's got loads of time now. So for me, getting back into Europe in some capacity has to be the bare minimum, and I think that's what INEOS would want because it all comes back to money with them.
You feeling positive, Ryan? Are you seeing some improvement? Are you happy with the signings and where Ruben can go with this squad now? Because it's all on him now.
It is. Look, I'm feeling positive. That obviously I had a bit of a rant last week about Amarin.
We all did, mate.
Yeah. Look, quite right. You know, that was the day before.
You don't want to see me and Anil in the office the day after.
But this was the day before the Grimsby game. I was saying, this system's been rubbish, really.
The day before Grimsby, you said this.
I feel like I spoke it into existence as well that we were going to lose. I feel a bit bad about that. I'm just saying.
Well done, Ange.
You did actually. I'm feeling positive. But on the back of that rant, there's people saying the players aren't playing for the manager. Look, I'm sick of this narrative, right? That the players aren't playing for every single manager we have. So Garnacho was Chelsea's 51st signing, right, in 4 years. 51 signings ago for us was Angel Di Maria, right? Just to give you a bit of context.
What a mad
all of these players, you mean to tell me, haven't played for their managers? Look, I'm going to quote a Jose Mourinho quote here, okay? Football heritage, I'm going to say managerial heritage, okay? We look at the players that have come in. Let's have a look at the managers that have come in. David Moyes, right? He's circled all the way back round to Everton. You'd probably say he's been the biggest success. Yeah. You look at Erik ten Hag, who's just been sacked by Leverkusen. Let's have a look at where they manage, how they manage, if they manage. Ralph Rangnick isn't managing. Well, he's managing.
He wasn't even managing before we got him.
He's managing Austria.
He's doing all right there.
He's managing Austria. Louis van Gaal isn't managing anymore. We were the last club that he managed. Okay, you've got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just been sacked by Besiktas. You've got Jose Mourinho's just been sacked by Fenerbahce. So let's have a look at all of these players and all of these managers. So when we talk about recruitment for players, let's talk about recruitment for managers as well. Have these managers that we brought in been good enough? Talk about managerial heritage as well. So look, I'm positive about the players we brought in, and I'm prepared to give Amarin faith. Faith indicates there's been no evidence, by the way, but I'm prepared to give him faith so far. I've seen a few signs this season that say, let's stick with him and let's hope he gets it right. So yeah, in answer to your question, I'm feeling positive.
So you are feeling positive.
You feel right?
I'm feeling positive, but I've still got a little bit of an eyebrow raised.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. Listen, it's going to be a long slog, and listen, things can change. One thing we do know, things can change very, very quickly in football. But the Grimsby was like an all-time low, that game, that performance, that result. But let's see how this goes. Right, that's all we've got time for on this week's Inside Devils. A big thanks to Angelina Kelly, Ryon Scott-Douglas, and of course Anil Kandola. And we will see you on the next episode very soon.